Welcome to the Twilight Zone. It's your boy Exodus here. We're back for another week of crazy excitement. No, there isn't. I'm kidding. Anyway, so this week we're going to be talking about suspensions. All right? A lot of you guys don't think about it. Right? You go to a dealership, like, yeah, I want this car, has these luxuries, has this and that and the third, and you're just like, okay, yeah, I'll take that. I'll take that car. It looks nice. You take it for a test drive. Depending on the car you get, it feels different, doesn't it? When you drive a pickup truck, when you drive a sedan, SUV, depending on the year also that it came out, it all feels different. None of them feel the same. And sometimes you're like, oh, well, I'm paying for, the luxury. I'm paying for, a little bit better experience, so you'll get an expensive-ass car, thinking that it's because the other car is shitty. No, it might just be that the suspension system they're using is trash. All right, guys, I'm going to break this down for you, explain it very quick, hopefully. There is a plethora of suspension systems that different vehicles use depending on, the weight, the vehicle type. It really just depends, right? But I'm going to give you like the very common ones, just so I don't bore you with the long-ass list and have to explain you things that you probably don't give a damn about, right? All right, guys, let's strap in. Let's see, I'm choking myself with the rope. Anyway, let's strap in and let's kick off this intro so we can get into this. Oh, I didn't see you there. Psych, no, I did. It's a stationary camera. Can't really go anywhere with that. Anyway, all right. So there are two type of suspension systems out there. All right, there's two, right? Simple systems, right? But there are different subcategories in those systems. All right. So dependent, right? Dependent. Right? You won't get what this picture means, but you will when I'm done explaining. And then, independent. All right? So dependent is mostly used in trucks, some SUVs, mostly trucks. Trucks, they're vary from, pickup trucks to, how to explain? Oh, Penske trucks, U-Haul trucks, stuff like that, right? So not just pickup trucks, right? It is the suspension that is used in most vehicles that are carrying a lot of weight and need a lot of power to the wheels. So because of that suspension, because it all depends on the axles, and if it's like, a straight axle or if it's, not. It's not an interaxle or like it's part of the frame. Dependent suspension systems are used for that. Independent is what we use in our everyday cars: Hondas, Nissans, Toyotas, Dodge, Ford. So that are the vehicles that use independent suspension systems. There is a few, I would say, older sedans that might still run dependent suspension systems, but those are the ones that are the bumpiest. It's kind of like when you're in those vehicles where like you hit a bump on the right side, but the whole entire car just decides to react to it. It's like boom, boom, boom. You're like, God damn, dude, what the fuck? The bump was on the right side, right? And then you get into these like luxury cars like a Mercedes-Benz or a Range Rover, you know, just pulling out cars out my ass. And you hit a bump on one side, you don't even feel it. You don't feel a pothole in the road. You're just kind of like you're like, oh, well, that was okay. I guess I hit a pothole. You know, you'll feel a little doom, like a little bump, but it's not like the whole vehicle reacting. That's an example of an independent suspension system. And now those are like one of the big pros as one of the big pros of independent suspension system. And then the con of having an independent one is the issue of you feeling it with the whole vehicle will move because it's all connected through the frame, through the axles. It's just one thing. So where the springs are on a dependent system, right? I'm gonna break this down before we get into what type suspensions there are in each one. So the dependent one, right? It's a whole entire axle, right? It is connected with a diff. It is one piece. So it is one piece, and the frame also, like, it's just one whole entire piece. And I'm gonna cut this. Who the fuck? Sorry for the delay there. Someone called me in the middle of my recording sesh. That was interesting, none the least. All right, let's go back. So it's a dependent, oh man, it's a dependent suspension system. All right, so there's a full axle, right? So there are springs on each side. And when the vehicle hits a bump, one of the springs will react to it, but since it is all part of one system, when it hits, both of them shift. So one goes up because it hit that bump, the other one is then forced to go down because it is one solid piece. So they react to each other. And that's what makes dependent suspension systems so bumpy. So when you hit a bump, the whole vehicle shakes you and you're kind of just like in there for the ride. Now, when you're looking at a independent suspension system, each one, so it is not part of one whole axle. So you'll have the frame, you have the diff, and you'll have its axles that are just, you know, plugged into the diffs, right? And the wheel itself is on its own little suspension system. Sometimes it's the spring, sorry, the spring and also the shock absorbers. Sometimes there's a little bit more pieces to it, but that's literally what it is. So then when one tire hits a bump, it will move up only in one side. The other side will stay the same. So it's literally gives you the advantage of literally just affecting one tire while the other one still maintains contact to the ground at the whole time. Either you're hitting a pothole, going over a rock, it doesn't matter. It doesn't affect the entire vehicle just because one side hit something or fell into a hole. That is the beauty of the independent suspension. All right? So, the main one when it comes to a dependent suspension system is a live axle suspension system, right? It literally is one unit, right? The axle and the diff, one unit. And it could either be a spring or a leaf spring, right? But it is, again, one full system. Like I was explaining to you before with the dependent system. It is just one thing. So when one moves, the other one reacts to it because it's one solid metal bar. So as soon as one eye goes up, the other one goes down, causing an imbalance. And that's why the vehicle shakes. And it's better when it comes into carrying heavy loads. You want to have a dependent suspension system because imagine if you had more weight on this side and not enough weight on this side in a pickup truck. It literally would be like, the truck would be like this because the left side isn't connected to the right side, so it doesn't matter. It would just hang like this. One tire would literally be all the way pushed up because of all that weight, and the other one would remain the same, right? Next, we're going to talk about independent suspensions, right? Here's a little image. So there is the McPherson suspension system, right? It's the one that most vehicles use nowadays. I'm going to show it to you right here. Do you see it? Do you see it? All right, so most cars have these, right? It literally is a strut with the spring already, with the little buffer spring on it already. There's fewer parts. It's cheaper. It really is. All it is a shock absorber with the spring on top. Boom. Instead of it being like the dependent suspension system, where it's connected to the frame and the strut's connected there, and it does all that, or the semi-independent, systems that also fall under dependent sometimes. Each individual one has its own spring, but it's connected to the strut, and that's all the suspension is, and it's used in a lot of cars. It's just simple, easy to repair, easy to manufacture, and that's what they do. Imagine if they're pumping out thousands of cars a day or even more, you want to have something that's, one, cheap, two, easy to mass produce. If it's something complicated and difficult and needs, a lot of time to make it or to set it up, the companies don't want to do that. It's wasting a lot of time, especially because most of these cars are mass produced because they are used everywhere in the world. All right? Next, we call this the double wishbone strut, double wishbone suspension system, whatever, right? So there are two wishbone looking metal objects, one on the top, one on the bottom. Wow, I wonder why it's called the wishbone. All right, so why it's called a double wishbone. There's two wishbones, right? They're each connected to the frame, one at the bottom, one on the top, goes straight into the wheel. Then you have the shock absorber, which has its springs on it. And now these ones are the ones that are used a lot in most modern cars, I would say. It's either the McPherson strut or it's a double wishbone. Both of them are very cheap to make, very easy to maintenance and fix, and they provide that amazing quality to where you're not driving around like this yoo-hoo in that truck is bouncing around everywhere. But you're driving casually and hitting a bump and not feeling it as much. My battery died. My battery died. Anyway, like I was saying. So, double wishbone suspension system aids when you're cornering and turning with the vehicle. So whenever you're turning it, it helps you actually maintain contact onto the road better, because as the weight shifts onto the thing, it actually is able to adjust because of the two double wishbones and actually help the tire maintain traction on the road, which you definitely want more traction when you are taking a turn or going around a corner, because you don't want that thing having less of a contact patch and just one little bit of sand will make you go gone with the wind. DED, right? Dead. You don't want that. Now, the next one is pretty crazy. Next, and last but not least, is the Multilink suspension system. Right? A lot of off-road vehicles, sedans, and sports cars actually rock these. So they kind of are the same thing as a double wishbone suspension system, right? It provides kind of of course, those benefits and a little bit more, right? But instead of it being two contact points on the frame, like I said, connecting two contact points onto the frame, this one has maybe three or more contact points. So there are multiple points, like from different angles, that are connected to the wheel to help it adjust and accept the shock, or accept the bump, from either going over something or hitting a pothole, right? And not only that, do they have multiple points, they also have that strut, that shock absorber with that spring on it to help, again, absorb the shock, while the rest of the suspension system helps maintain the most contact patch of the tire on the road, right? And that's what you want in the end, you know. And like I said, a lot of sedans use these, and they use a double wishbone. And so when you're out there looking for a car, I mean, I'm not expecting you to, you know, be looking down there and be like, hey, I'm looking underneath this car and this guy's suspension is not a double wishbone. I don't want this. Don't do that. Like I said, most vehicles, most sedans nowadays in the modern era that we are in are either rocking a double wishbone or a Multilink suspension system, or they're rocking the McPherson strut. So all these suspension systems are good. And there is a lot more in depth you can get, or I could get with you guys, when it comes to suspension systems. These are just the common ones that are used on everyday vehicles. And I wanted to give you guys this because what I'm actually going to do is when we get into the next video, that by the time this is posted, it would already have been recorded, is the difference between a track vehicle and a drag vehicle. You know, if you don't know what drag is, it's a drag strip. It's just a straight line, and you're just trying to get to the quarter mile as fast as you can. And the track, well, literally what it is a track, either with a bunch of turns everywhere. It's usually pretty long. Depends. Some tracks are shorter than others, but either way, you have to rely not only on the power of your vehicle, but your skill, the handling, the tires, everything falls in. Like, there's a lot more things you have to overthink when it comes to the track than you do with a drag. But there are things in the drag step that need to be done. If not, could lead to really bad results. But anyway, when I give you guys that video is when I'll break down the other form of suspensions that actually help racers and people that go on the track and drag strip out the most. Because today was just the basics I want to give you guys. Because again, not only am I trying to inform, you know, my car lovers and stuff like that, but we also want to inform the people that don't really know much about cars and, you know, would like a little bit more information about what they're buying, you know, so they know what they're getting into. Even though that might not be a question that you guys might ask, I'm always here to answer questions that the very few ask. All right? Please do hit that wonderful like button just so I know that you guys are liking our content so I can continue improving stuff. Please do subscribe if you want to keep getting more, you know, informational videos, and soon to be other content. I promise you guys. I've been saying this for too long, and I'm going to kill my partner Ricky if he doesn't give me something for me to post, because I swear I'm going to kill him. And then please hit that bell notification so you actually can see the day I actually either kill him or post a video related to the other content that I've talked about multiple times on this channel. All right? Thank you again for supporting us. Please do check out the links below on this video, because we do have our Facebook, Instagram. We have a Patreon page, which we don't have any patrons. So how are we supposed to continue being able to do some crazier and crazier things for you guys and actually work on vehicles? You know, you guys can help us out. We do have that Patreon page. Actually, I'll put the link right here. Not that difficult. Anyway, deuce.